Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Dan Dawson Show. You know what? Let's talk about Mini America, America Junior, Australia. Now, if you notice, what was it, 2, 3 years ago? They did gun confiscation. First, they did gun registration, which is why we must never allow gun registration in the United States. Now, what you have is Australian police beating citizens in the street. And what are citizens to do? All they can do is get in a group and run through the police. Which is why we can never allow it to come here. It can't happen. And if you'll notice, one of the things the liberals always want to do, the first thing they do is they go after your guns. The very first thing. So let's look at how this started. First, now we know. This COVID thing has been known about for years. It was no surprise to anybody, right? So everybody's been pushing gun control. Obama went down to Chicago today and gave a big speech about gun control. It's very easy to talk about gun control when you're protected by a heavily armed group of, let's just say, I'm not going to call the what do you call those guys who protect the president? I'm not going to call them assassins, but assassins. You're protected by a heavily armed group of assassins. So no, you personally don't need a gun. But guess who needs a gun? The 120-pound woman walking down the street. The 220-pound man walking down the street that gets jumped by 4 people. The couple sleeping in their house and have 4 or 5 people break into their house in the middle of the night. They need firearms to protect themselves. Sorry, it is what it is. You know where you don't have that anymore? Mini America, America Junior, Australia. You don't have it. It's ridiculous. So what you have now is Australian police enforcing lockdowns, beating people in the street, arresting a man for being 2 blocks from his home, smoking a cigarette. And they say, well, the vaccine mandate, he wasn't wearing a mask. But you can walk into a restaurant, take your mask off and eat. But you can't sit on a street corner outside by yourself and smoke a cigarette. Now, guys know I love my cigarettes. It is what it is. Even though I have cut back since I've got to Texas, because honestly, it's just too damn hot. Which is one of the things I actually love. So it's helped me cut back on that. But this is what's going on. So can America turn to Australia? Oh, hell yeah, that's what they're trying to do. You look in New York, you look in San Francisco, you look in Los Angeles. Well, not really. Los Angeles isn't quite there yet. They're getting there. But if you look in New York and San Francisco, even these basketball players, they're like, yeah, well, if I can't play there for half a season, I understand. They're missing out on millions of dollars. They're like, okay, well, I'm still not going to get it. So I'm trying to be careful here because YouTube is going to ban and take down, destroy your profile if you say anything about a vaccine mandate, if you say anything negative about the vaccine, which, although it's their right as a private company, smacks to me of something another country used to do. I keep forgetting who that country is, though. Let me see if I can remember. I remember the year was 1936. I can't remember the company. Maybe I'll give my buddy Mr. Goring, Mr. Randall Goring, a call later on. Maybe he can remember it. I don't remember. But Australia, they control the news. The government controls the news. And here's what's really funny, right? East Australia is having all these lockdowns and the police are in the streets beating people. West Australia is open. Now, East Australia is trying to pressure West Australia into shutting down. Could we be looking at a fracture of Australia? Yeah, we could. Now, if you'll look in our own country, you have the East Coast, some of the East Coast, the West Coast, trying to pressure states into Texas and Florida into doing what they do. So yesterday, I was watching YouTube. I watched this representative from Texas, and he was talking about the COVID mandates and the violations on your First and Second Amendment rights. And he very pointedly got up and said, if you continue along this course, if you don't think there's going to be a confrontation, you're wrong. There will be a confrontation. So I'm thinking one step behind Australia as far as moving. Because West Australia said they're not going to back down. East Australia said, well, we're going to keep pushing. And if you look at the United States, that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing the same thing. If you think Texans are giving up their guns, you have no idea what Texas is about. If you think Texans are giving up their guns, Floridians, Oklahomans, people from New Hampshire, New Mexico, you have no idea what's going on down here. I'm looking in 23 of the 50 states. There's a little map. If I can figure this technical stuff out, I might get my boy Brandon from DB Presents Underground News to post it. 23 of the 50 states don't agree with what's going on. They think it's unconstitutional. So now you have 23 of 50 states not agreeing. I watched this episode of Tim Pool, right? Which is a really great YouTube show. I recommend you watch it. One of the guys that's always on there, Ian, well, not always, but most of the time he's on there. He was like, well, if New Hampshire succeeded, the United States military would crush them. And Tim Pool said, well, what if Texas and Florida joined New Hampshire? And they had a guest on there from Texas, right? And he stated very simply and clearly, and you know what? Back when I was in the military, if this had come up, and now we're fractured. Say we're a fractured country. And I got to fight for Texas or I got to fight for the United States. I'm fighting for Texas all day, every day. And I love the United States flag. I love the United States. I love Texas more, though. So now you have all these combat-hardened, trained troops fighting for Texas. It's just gotten ridiculous. I love saying that. It's ridiculous. I think I'm going to come up with a shirt that says, that's ridiculous. So you really got to ask yourself, it's like, where are we at that we're at this much of a fracture in the United States? I can tell you where we're at. You can hear the Australian Prime Minister's assistant or whatever mentioned the New World Order. You hear top-level American officials mentioning the New World Order. You hear German officials, French officials mentioning the New World Order, one world government, centralized power. That's not how America became great. I'm telling you, it's coming down to it. It's coming down to it. It's going to be ugly. It's not going to be pretty. I was hoping for a peaceful divorce, and it's still, hopefully, I wish that the federal government, would just step back and say, okay, you states run your thing. Because what may be right in New York may not be right in Florida. What may be right in San Francisco may not be right in Texas. What may be right in Seattle, Washington may not be right in Arizona. Are they going to do it? I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. But stay locked in, and we'll see what happens. But the Australia thing has really opened a lot of eyes. You notice the first thing they did was take guns. Then they squashed your First Amendment rights. And then they beat you in the streets. I really don't have a lot of apathy for the people of Australia. You voted for this shit. And you know what? If you listened to the old Austrian lady say, when the government tells you you don't need guns, keep your guns and buy more. And she told you exactly how the Nazis took control, which is exactly what the Socialist Party is doing now. They own your kids in schools. Now parents are starting to speak up, which is great. Go for it. Speak up. They took your guns. They took your First Amendment rights. And then they bombarded you with lies. Everything Biden says from the podium and that liar Jen Psaki says is a lie. Simplest way to put it. It's a lie. They lie all day. They just killed 7 kids and show no remorse. No remorse at all. Think about that. What kind of person knows, even if it was a mistake, you killed 7 kids and show no remorse? They just got 13 soldiers killed, and they don't care. Don't care at all. Their caskets coming off the plane. Joe Biden's checking his watch. Like I tell you guys, I've told this story on previous videos. When you escort a soldier home, every time that casket leaves a plane and goes to another, you stand there and salute on the tarmac. You watch that casket get on the next plane. You salute. And then when it gets to the funeral home in his native city, even at the funeral, you stand guard over. Every time that casket is opened, you're there and you stand guard over his body. You know what? I actually had to do that. Never once did it ever occur to me to check my damn watch. What a piece of shit. Anyway, I got a little off subject. Got a little carried away with that. But no, are we hit it to be like Australia? Yeah, oh yeah, we're already there. We're not hit it for, we're already there. And I thank God for the governors, Abbott, DeSantis, the governors of New Mexico, New Hampshire, who said, yeah, we're not going to do this. And the representatives who are saying, hey, if you're going to enforce this, there's going to be a confrontation. And so when now you have state leaders of various states saying, yeah, we're ready for a confrontation. Get your ammo together, get your food and supplies together. It's going to be a long fight. So like, subscribe, share, and as always, do what you got to do.